Console, online. HPG connection, online. Educational module, online. All systems, nominal.
Hello, class, and welcome to On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast, episode 34. Today we are going to continue to talk about the Thunderbolt, the 65-ton iconic mech. My co-hosts today are...
I'm Joshua.
And I'm Chandler.
And, of course, this is going to be part B of our week plus of Thunderbolt, and we're going to pick up right where we left off, and we're going to start off with the 9SE. This guy has a movement profile of 464 and a LRM-10 in the left torso, 3 medium pulse lasers in the left torso, and a large pulse laser in the right arm. He has also got 15 double heat sinks. And this guy is actually a specialized variant for the Eridani Light Horse. And it first debuted in 3049, and it's a pretty neat little machine, if I do say so myself.
I mean, it's a Thunderbolt, so what's not to love? It's an SE, which usually means it has jump jets, which makes it even better.
Yep.
It does. It has exactly 4 of the little guys. I like the switch to a large pulse laser for the right arm weapon. It kind of complements the LRM-10 to an extent, because once stuff tries to run in to underrun the LRM-10, it gets that face full of large pulse laser, which even with it being a Intersphere spec version, still is going to ruin someone's day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pulse lasers on tabletop are very potent pieces of machinery because they get the to-hit modifier, of course.
Yeah, basically lets you treat their medium range as short range, which is a big boost since they generally have a shorter overall range than your standard or ER lasers.
Just another Thunderbolt, this one with a fancy-dancy large pulse laser and attached to the Eridani Light Horse.
Which, you know, is noteworthy as its pedigree as a mercenary unit throughout the history of Battletech.
For those of you who play Alpha Strike, this 9SE is a pretty solid version of an Intersphere Heavy. Good mid-range firepower, decent armor, decent structure, good movement for a heavy.
Yeah, and jump jets always are useful, especially if you're in some heavy woods or something and you can just reorient your positioning as need be. So this guy clocks in with a battle value of 1439 and a point value of 37. And it's going to be followed up with the Thunderbolt C, which of course is the clan version of the mech, built off the Intersphere chassis but upgraded with clan weaponry. So it's got a movement profile of 4.6. It has an ER large laser clan in the left torso, a large laser pulse clan in the right arm, 1 ER medium laser clan in the left arm, and 2 small ER lasers in the left arm as well, also clan. It's got 15 single heat sinks, so that's a tall order for a heavy laser loadout there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how useful all that firepower is going to be when you're going to shut down the second you start shooting.
You're going to immediately have to stop using that ER large as soon as stuff gets within the range of your ER medium.
Yeah, this guy seems like he wants to slowly bracket fire or switch gears from what laser system he's using as range dependent, you know?
Yeah, it also doesn't feel like a Thunderbolt to me.
The lack of missiles definitely doesn't help with that.
Yep, and then it's usually Thunderbolts have a trio of 3 lasers in the side torso. And this guy has a single ER large laser instead.
Yeah, but I mean, it does have 3 in the arm. They're not all the same.
Yeah. I mean, it's clan tech, so it's cheating.
Well, I mean, this is definitely a Salama unit, as all the Intersphere C models are.
Yeah, overheat and die.
So this guy's got a battle value of 1593 and a point value of 34. We then move on to the 9S, which is of course a upgrade of the 5S line. This model uses off-the-shelf standard parts whenever possible, allowing for reduction in maintenance time, and sourcing of parts is a easier job. This was not intended, as production issues meant that the startup was delayed and resolved with the change. So basically they couldn't get the specialized part manufacturing online in time, so they just took what they knew worked off the shelf and put it in. This guy was first seen in 3050, and it's got the classic movement profile of 4.6. It has an anti-missile system in the right torso, 2 flamers in the right torso, 3 medium lasers in the left torso, 1 SRM-6 in the left torso, 1 ER PPC in the right arm, and 2 machine guns in the left arm. It's got 15 double heat sinks, and this guy is a classic Thunderbolt updated to the current era, you know?
With some extra anti-infantry firepower. Yeah, it kind of sucks he loses out on the long-range missiles, so some of that Thunderbolt flexibility goes away, but at the same time, he's still got a hard-hitting main weapon, a good suite of backup weapons, and I guess he's trading really his role as a long-range fire support for long-range fire protection by protecting his allies from incoming LRMs with that anti-missile system.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, never mind. That's a MechWarrior Online only thing.
Oh, like an umbrella thing?
Yeah, in MechWarrior Online, AMS shoots down any incoming missiles within its range, not just ones headed towards you.
See, now I didn't immediately correct you because I'm pretty sure some of the mods that I've run with HBS Battletech also will do that, so.
Yeah.
And there's probably something in TAC Ops that allows you to do it on the tabletop as well.
I really like the addition of the flamers, and I almost kind of wish it switched out the machine guns for more flamer.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's splitting the difference with having 2 flamers and 2 machine guns. I would either want it to double down on the machine guns or the flamers. I think the flamers would be a better call personally, but...
Yeah, I think the flamers are a bit more multi-purpose, because then you can push other double heatsink mechs a bit harder, because then you're overheating them. Because a lot of mechs aren't designed to get hosed with 4 flamers, assuming we were to replace the 2 machine guns with 2 more flamers.
Mm-hmm.
That'll upset the heat management of any mech.
Absolutely.
And then it also upsets any infantryman or tank or anything.
But I mean, the 2 flamers it does have will have a significant effect nonetheless.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you don't want the crop field that you're fighting in to get burnt completely down and you still need to kill some infantry, it's nice to have machine guns instead.
Mm-hmm. So if you're playing defensively, you know, in a campaign where you have to fend off an invasion, don't set the world's food supply on fire.
Yeah.
Or even if you're on the attack, I mean, the old adage is pillage then burn. You know, if you have 4 flamers, makes plundering first, burning later a little more difficult.
That is fair. But I personally really like the switch to the SRMs. I think that's a neat way to increase its close-range firepower. And of course, given it that ERPPC means it's not missing that long-range punch. It just means it can't do indirect fire. So this guy's going to come in at 1494 for a battle value, and it has a point value of 37. It is followed by the 10 SE, and this guy was seen in 3067, and it's got mask. That is the big improvement to this guy. Other than that, it has new art. It's got the Project Phoenix art, which moves the cockpit to the other torso, and of course it gives it more of a, I'm not sure what type of art direction it gives it, but it gives it a different art direction.
Or industrial.
Like the cockpit definitely reads as industrial with the roll bars,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's got a really blocky, angular thing going on.
Yeah.
And of course it's also missing the missile pod because of course that needed to disappear for a reason. I don't know why. It seems like not a Thunderbolt without it, I'm going to be honest.
And I think that's part of the goal, is this is, rescene arts. They're trying to avoid lawsuits with this.
Absolutely. But it doesn't lose the missile system, it moves it. So this guy's got a movement profile of 464, and with the mask online, it's got a run of 8. This guy has a Guardian ECM suite, a targeting computer. It's got 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso, an LRM-10 in the left torso, and an ER PPC in the right arm. It also has 12 double heat sinks, and I mean, this guy's numbers are great. I like how the weapon system lines up. The ECM is nice to have. The targeting computer is also nice to have.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to pilot one of these.
Yeah, this guy definitely takes the multi-role nature of the Thunderbolt and says, you know what, I'm going to focus on killing other mechs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he does it really well.
But he definitely does it at a distance. He doesn't have much in the way of close range. That's really all the ER medium lasers are for. This guy, I think, really wants to pick away with the LRM 10s and the ER PPCs, and then if anything gets close, finish it off with the ER medium lasers.
Well, I mean, in a pinch, he can use the ER PPC in short range. Doesn't get a minimum range, so he's definitely not toothless in close range encounters by any means.
This is true. This guy has a battle value of 2008, and he has a point value of 44. And after that, we come to the 7 SE. Not entirely sure why the SE line is bouncing back and forth on the numbers chronologically, but here we are. The 7 SE is guarded by an ECM suite as well, and will poke at you with its Gauss rifle. It's first seen in 3067 and is a nice machine, in my opinion, because, of course, Gauss rifle. It loses the targeting computer, but it also adds a medium pulse laser to the left arm. So you've got 3 medium pulse lasers in the left torso, a Gauss rifle in the right arm, a medium pulse laser in the left arm. It's got a movement profile of 464, and it's got 10 double heat sinks. And it's also got ferro for armor and endo steel for its skeleton.
Yeah, I really like this switch up with the Thunderbolt to a Gauss rifle. Definitely loses out with not having a missile system, but with the 4 medium pulse lasers, you can handle anything that gets within your minimum range of the Gauss rifle handily enough, and you can still reach out and touch people.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing is sweet, as I said.
The 7S, the SE stuff jumping around has to do partly with the fact that SE is usually a jump-capable upgrade to whatever the number and S is before it, but also the 7SE is one of the Phoenix Project ones, so there was a lot of just kind of shotgun design at the wall kind of stuff.
Yeah, just what can we make that replaces something that we can't use anymore, right?
Kind of. I mean, they're trying to shoehorn these reseen designs into the lore as best as possible. So, but this is one of the best Thunderbolt variants out there, in my opinion.
Gauss rifle will mess your day up.
Mm-hmm.
ECM to protect yourself. It's really a mech killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a hunter killer. Like this is something that gets dispatched to put down that unit.
And it's got a fusion engine, so it's even more rugged than some of the other really good Thunderbolts that rely on an XL or a light engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a little more survivability. Always a good thing. So this guy's got a battle value of 1809 and a point value of 42. After that, we come to the 9M, and this design brings the Thunderbolt up to the current era's standard in the 3060s. This model shifts to a primary long-range loadout and shifts the cockpit to the right to avoid damage when the Gauss rifle has a bad boom. Designed and produced in 3067, this guy is interesting. It re-adds the missile compartment or not drum.
Pod,
thank you. It re-adds the missile pod onto the design, keeps the Gauss rifle, but it is changed to a light Gauss rifle. And the canon reason, of course, why they moved to the cockpit was because if that Gauss rifle goes, they didn't want the Mech Warrior to get injured, so that would be why. It's got a LRM-15 in that missile pod, and it's got 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso. It's got a movement profile of 464, and it's got 10 double heat sinks. And yeah, like this thing is also really neat and really cool. I mean, I'm not going to complain about the missile pod coming back because it makes it look like a Thunderbolt.
An interesting left, most people probably didn't realize that the missile pod had gone away initially because all 3 of these mech designs come from the same TRO, and the 9M here is the default art for that technical readout.
Of course.
So when you flip through the technical readout Project Phoenix for the first time, it's a weird Thunderbolt, but it still has the missile pod, so it's still recognizable. It's not until you dig into the other art that you start to go, wait, that's supposed to be a Thunderbolt?
Not going to have what I'm going to call the Orion problem, with that redesign that looked completely different.
Yeah.
Light Gauss rifles are cool. I mean, 25 hex max range.
If it's got an open field of fire, it's a beautiful piece of tech.
It also downgrades the damage to that of a large laser, so 8 points of damage, which kind of sucks. But yeah, you can really, really reach out and touch people with this.
Yeah, it definitely switches its mission profile from being a all-comer or mech assassin to being much more of a snipery, I'm going to shoot whatever comes into my field of view mech.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't think anybody would be disappointed to have this in their unit.
Oh, no.
It's got a battle value of 1648 and a point value of 38. And then we come to the, I guess, successor designation to the Royal Unit, the 9NAIS, since we always seem to have a New Avalon Institute of Science build now.
Yeah.
And of course, this one was designed to test all the new Davian toys in 3067, specifically the XL engine and the rotary AC5s. This guy is very interesting. It's got a movement profile of 5.8, so upgrading that speed with the larger engine. It keeps that ECM. It's got the 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso, and it switches the missiles from LRMs to a Streak SRM-6 in the left torso. It also has the targeting computer, and it has a rotary AC-5 in the right arm. It's got 13 double heat sinks, and it's got 3 tons of ammo for the rotary and 1 ton for the SRMs. So this guy is very well stocked in my opinion. And of course the ammo is guarded by case, but seeing as how it's got an XL fusion engine, that's not really going to help if it actually cooks off.
Well, I mean, not in a straight up deathmatch, but in campaign rules.
Salvage.
Yeah, well, it's salvage, and if the side torso is destroyed but not the center torso engine slots, the mech is recoverable.
Oh, okay.
If the center torso engine slots are destroyed, the mech is a complete loss.
Sadly, I have never had an opportunity to run a actual campaign. I've only ever had stand-up death matches that I've been able to play with friends, so that is interesting to learn and helpful information. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that doesn't make a whole lot of sense from stand-up, deathmatch one-off play, but for in-universe and campaign play, having that case there means your pilot's more likely to survive, the mech's more likely to be able to be patched back together and put back into the field.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's an absolute beast for the Inner Sphere on Alpha Strike. 6 points of damage on an Inner Sphere.
Have we mentioned it goes 5.8 yet?
No, we have not.
He's fast, boy. Definitely a switch up from the old Thunderbolts.
Yep.
And like I said, in Alpha Strike, he hits like a truck. 6 points of damage for an Inner Sphere heavy is really good in Alpha Strike.
That sounds like a good number from what little I know of Alpha Strike. Really gotta brush up on that, and with the book coming in the Kickstarter, hopefully that'll incentivize me to actually pick that up.
Well, to give you a kind of a baseline, the 7 SE with the Gauss rifle, its medium range damage value is 5.
I see.
And the classic 5S original Thunderbolt has a medium range value of 3. So yeah, this NAIS is a really good mech for Alpha Strike if you play Davian.
Well, it's got a battle value of 1864 and a point value of 47. And after that, we come to the 11 SE, which is got also new art, which is different, and I really like this art. This feels like a heavy industrial machine. This feels like something we could actually make today almost. It wouldn't have, of course, these stats, but it would look like this. This guy has just, it's gorgeous. I don't know what more to say. It's got a snub-nose PPC, it's got improved jump jets, it's got the MML7, it's got a Guardian ECM suite, it's got a targeting computer, it's got those 3 ER medium lasers in the left torso.
So for those of you who've been checking off the Joshua things to have, snub-nose, MML7, ECM suite, and improved jump jets. There's a reason why this mech is my WNRP ride.
I think the only thing you could want to make it better would be having a jumping of 7.
Yes.
If you got that one, it'd be a bingo.
Yep, it would be. And I've used this mech to great effect in Mega Mech. It's tanky. Even though it has the light fusion, the jump really helps keep it alive on classic Battletech. The snub nose is amazing. The MMLs are great because you can fire them as LRMs when you're at 7 hexes and SRMs when you get in closer. It runs hot. That is one thing I will say about this 11SC is it runs hot. You've only got 10 double heat sinks and you can blow through that heat in no time, jumping, firing off your ER medium lasers. So for those people who were asking us to do kind of strategy and tactics on some of these mechs, the way I use this guy is I will throw him out in front of my other mechs to draw fire, and because he jumps more than 5, he gets a +3 modifier. He's got that targeting computer, so he reduces his penalty to +2, and then he's a heavy mech, so he's got the armor to take what few hits land on him. He's very good at hitting his short range while he's still in their medium range, and then once he's done kind of skirmishing and shielding his allies, he switches to backstabbing and he'll jump in point blank range behind somebody and then unleash everything, spike his heat all the way up, and then bounce away with those jump jets to snipe with the snub-nose PPC until his heat comes back down, and then he'll come back in, alpha strike in somebody's rear arc, and then jump out and snipe with the snub-nose PPC. So kind of a skirmisher backstabber.
There you go. Sounds like an efficient use of this model. So it's got a battle value of 1754 and a point value of 35.
I don't want to get shot by it.
Much better to be riding in it than riding against it, right?
Yeah, or with it.
Yeah. So after that, we're going to jump up numerically to the 17S, and this refit adds some interesting toys, including a heavy gyro, a compact engine, and jump jets. The first noted completed upgrade happened in 3070, and this guy has a movement profile of 464. It's got TSM, so when it's got its heat up, it's got a movement profile of 5.8. It has a Guardian ECM suite. It's got 3 medium pulse lasers in the left torso, an ER PPC in the right arm, and a medium pulse laser in the left arm. And then it has 10 double heat sinks, so I think you're going to be able to get that heat up pretty quick.
Yeah, no problem there. The really cool thing for me is how tanky this guy is. That compact gyro and compact fusion, or heavy duty gyro and compact fusion, really boost its internal structure survivability up.
Oh yeah. You could just have both of his torsos disappear and he'd still survive. He wouldn't be having a good day, and he couldn't do anything except run away, but he'd survive.
And he'd run away under ECM.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the Muse Fire and other Muse designs from the Davians, where they're like, you know what, let's make the most survivable mech we can, so we don't have to keep replacing these things. And you end up with a lot of mechs with like compacts and heavy duties and torso-mounted cockpits, and I was almost a little sad that I didn't see a torso-mounted cockpit, but I mean, that'd just be changing up the formula a little much for a Thunderbolt out of nowhere.
Yeah, would it really be a Thunderbolt with a torso-mounted cockpit?
Nah, it'd be like a Goddard Damarung or something then.
Which I think this 17S is the spiritual predecessor to the Goddard Damarung.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. I would not have put that connection together unless you said it, but no, I totally see it now.
If you play House Steiner, because it's only available to Steiners in Master Unit list, if you play House Steiner and Alpha Strike, this is an incredibly tanky heavy. It's got more structure and more armor than almost any other heavy, even close to its weight class.
Mm-hmm.
This is such a good mech. I want one now.
No, you're not allowed.
So it's got a battle value of 1803 and a point value of 40. And then we're going to go to our final mech of the episode, the 60-RLA, a model based on the 9NAIS, but is doing its own thing, first seen in 3072. And this guy is interesting. It's got a small pulse laser in the center torso, 3 ER medium lasers in the right torso, a snub-nose PPC in the right torso, 2 medium pulse lasers in the left torso, 2 small lasers in the left torso, and 1 snub-nose PPC in the left torso. It's got a movement profile of 585, and it also has that TSM, so when it's heated up, it can go 6.9. It's got 12 double heat sinks. I can see the path that it takes to get from the 9 New Avalon model to this, but it's a long and winding path.
Yeah, I do like the 2 snub noses though. That's a nice touch. It's, you know, we can still reach out and touch people, but you know, if they get a little close, they're gonna be missing a lot of parts of their mechs.
Yeah, this guy definitely wants to close though. You know, taking a bunch of heat on, getting that movement profile upgrade, and then using that TSM to just rip another mech apart because, of course, it doesn't have any weapons in its arms, which means it can punch all day.
Yeah, this is suddenly making me think of a heavyweight version of the Neanderthal.
Yeah, just give it an axe.
I thought about taking this as my WNRP ride, but the lack of missiles really kind of hurt it, in my opinion. I love the 2 snub noses, but missiles give you so much flexibility.
Oh, yeah.
But still, this guy's got to be easy to keep at TSM heat because of the huge diversity of weapons it's got. Being able to dial your heat exactly where you want it with those small pulse lasers.
Yeah, because you don't even have to be in range of anything. You can just shoot it at the ground.
And it's really nice when you don't have to annotate or remember that you've turned off heat sinks, especially if all of a sudden you're getting hit by flamers and you want the extra heat sink capability. So managing your heat by firing off a small laser and a small pulse laser to generate that 3 heat you need just to maintain your heat load is really nice.
Definitely a different way to do it, but it's not a inefficient way to do it.
Yeah, and it's got a laser for everyone in the room, so don't be afraid of missing out.
Yep. So this guy's got a battle value of 1975 and a point value of 38. And that wraps up the models for the episode, so we're going to move on over to pilot profiles.
All right, for notable pilots for this episode, we have Maeve Wolf, who was a member of the Wolf's Dragoons, who piloted a Thunderbolt upgraded with clan technology during the Dragoons Civil War. An interesting fact about her is she was the clone and a later successor of Jamie Wolf, the original leader of the Wolf's Dragoons, and during the Dragoon Civil War, she fought and killed the leader of the opposing faction, Alpin Wolf, who was the grandson of Jamie Wolf. So I'm not sure if that is fratricide or not, but still a little weird either way, but I'm going to chalk it up to clan shenanigans and leave it at that. It's not stated what Thunderbolt model she piloted, but seeing as a Thunderbolt upgraded with clan tech, I'm assuming it's a Thunderbolt C, which means she must have been quite a good pilot as she was able to keep that thing from melting her in her cockpit.
For our data dive this episode, I'm going to throw back over to Chandler, doing some heavy lifting this episode, and he is going to talk about the
Aries Conventions. Yes, so this week we're going to talk about the Aries Conventions. Originally, I had planned to talk about the Free Worlds League, but last time we talked about the Free Worlds League and visited their lovely history, I jumped the gun quite a bit and went clear past where I had originally planned to stop.
You were just so excited.
Yeah, gotta always be with my favorite house, but as quote-unquote filler, we're going to go with the Aries Conventions, as it does involve both of the great houses I was covering, which is the Capellan Confederation and the Free Worlds League.
And really, it covers every great house and all of the Inner Sphere, if you really think about it.
Yeah, but was definitely spurred on by good old Merrick and Liao duking it out as per usual. So the Aries Conventions were a treaty signed by almost all of the Inner Sphere powers at the time. This occurred during the Age of War and essentially was a reaction to the dreadful fighting on a planet called Tintavel, which was invaded by the Free Worlds League under the command of Peter Merrick. This started off as a very traditional assault. However, neither force could gain the upper hand, so they both resorted to you and what army diplomacy, which meant everyone brought out nukes.
All the toys we're not actually supposed to use.
Yes, all the toys that you signed a nice little pledge to your grandfather to not use. They ripped up that pledge and pulled them all out.
They forgot to plunder first.
Yes, they forgot to plunder first. Dang it. Forgot to teach them that. So, effectively, the planet was rendered useless and was completely abandoned within a couple of years after the warfare. This appalled House Liao, which was kind of surprising when I learned about this. I figured it would be the Free Worlds League, but it so appalled the leader of House Liao at the time, Alicia Liao. She began a campaign of aggressive diplomacy and eventually succeeded in establishing a conclave of diplomats and leaders, which would eventually be called the Aries Conference, which was tasked with creating a rule set for war, which would reduce civilian losses. While this started off well, effectively it turned into a miniature Age of War where all the conference attendees and diplomats just started reviving rivalries between their other states. And it started with the 80-page draft, but then eventually bloated up as more and more clarifications were added to prevent future quote-unquote misunderstandings during wartime. I see this a lot of asterisks attached. And so you got this nice little 80-page document. All of a sudden, there's, at the end of a sentence, there's 20 asterisks. And then you've got another 100 pages of reading to figure out what all those are.
And how they interact with each other, of course.
Then there's that one guy going, well, actually...
Yeah, this only applies to Draconis Combine.
There's always one rules lawyer.
So in the end, the Aries Conference drew up a massive treaty, which includes 6 articles, 18 appendices, and it totaled 320 pages off of the original 80-page draft. This was signed on the 13th of June, 2412, by 8 of the 10 nations that were invited, and this includes the Terran Hegemony, Capellan Confederation, Free Worlds League, Rimworlds Republic, Federated Sons, Principality of Rasselhog, Lyran Commonwealth, and Draconis Combine. 2 of the invited delegates, the one for the Taurian Concordat and the one for the United Hindu Collective, both abstained from signing for different reasons. The Taurian Concordat decided not to sign because they distrusted the Capellans and figured they would not uphold them and thought the conventions were hypocritical. This would be proven correct shortly after, with the Capellans deciding that since they didn't sign the Aries Convention Treaty, they didn't have to uphold it against them, and pulled all of the hippity-hoppity get off my property, I have nukes, fun times.
Which I don't think is how international treaties are supposed to work.
No, I don't think so either. The other interesting one of the potential signatories that did not sign was the United Hindu Collective, which does not exist anymore and was eventually subsumed into the Draconis Combine. They decided not to sign as, firstly, they did not want to wage any war whatsoever, and two, they were worried that the conventions would legitimize and trivialize warfare, which is essentially what came to pass, as everyone was like, well, now that we have these fun rules to make sure we don't get nuked, we can go and push around our little paper armies and fight each other without having to worry about nuclear weapons and warship bombardments.
Sadly, the nation would not live to see them proven correct.
Yeah, good old Draconis Combine absorbing minor powers.
It is their shtick.
I'm surprised nobody else, except probably the Taurians, got what they were saying. Because anybody who's played any sort of war game knows, as soon as you make a rule, somebody's going to game it and twist it and ruin the fun for everybody else.
Yeah, someone's going to figure out a way to circumvent the rule without actually on paper circumventing it. And be like, no, we're fine. We're not doing anything wrong. You know, you really have to uphold the spirit of the law instead of the letter of the law if you want any sort of agreement to work.
Yeah, and I mean, the Taurian Concordat faced that one the fun way, and the Hindu Collective, I'm assuming, was not treated very kindly by the Draconis Combine, and probably followed the Capellan Confederation's legalese argument when they absorbed them. As a broad overview of the Aries Conventions, I'm just going to do a overview of the 6 articles, and then the appendices, or some of the appendices, and then the 2 addendums, and then do a bit of a legacy on the convention and see where it's gone now, because it does not end up where you think a nice international law would end up. So, Article 1 forbids the use of nuclear weapons against all civilian targets and planets and military targets within 75,000 kilometers of a planet. So, essentially takes nukes off the battlefield for any sort of land engagement and keeps it up in space, which I think is okay, seeing as, you know, I don't think anyone would have fully signed away their right to use nukes. And so I think this is probably as close as they can get to an agreement on that one.
Well, it basically resigned nukes to naval war.
Yeah, which, I mean, with how prominent spaceships and navies were at the time, makes sense. Sometimes you just gotta take a fly swatter to it.
How far away from inhabited planets is the restriction?
75,000 kilometers, which, now that I've repeated that, does not seem very far.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're still within orbit. Well, you're within the lunar orbit.
I think that qualifies as high Earth orbit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's somewhere between the moon and Earth, but it's outside of the atmosphere for sure.
Yeah, so at the very least, you're not nuking civilians. Speaking of nuking civilians, Article 2 forbids any orbital bombardment except against vital military targets which are not anywhere near populated areas. Also makes sense. Article 3 establishes the white flag adorned with a red S as a universal symbol of surrender and truce, which all signatories agreed to abide by, which is kind of surprising that they put the red S on there, but maybe someone decided that a white flag would make a great national flag, and so they had to make sure we really knew they were surrendering.
Well, they just didn't want people taking off their jimmies and waving those.
Gosh dang it, Bob. Not again. Article 4 establishes the right of safe passage under a sign of truce and conditions for its loss. Also makes sense. Another thing that probably was in general, like, unsaid rule, like, hey, you know, if we're under truce, we're not going to shoot each other randomly, right?
Well, parley is a long-held tradition of non-combat.
Yeah, so I feel like this is just solidifying some preconceived conditions that everyone probably was already upholding to an extent, but still good to have in writing. Article 5 explicitly disavows combat in cities unless a military target was within the city and against civilian targets.
Also, how do you define a military target? Like, is a factory a military target if it's supplying, you know, wartime goods?
You could wiggle that one real good with the unless a military target was within the city, and I'm sure that happened immediately.
And there we have the first 3 appendices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's got a slightly large gun. That's a military target. Let's go get him. Like, you can wiggle that one real good. And then finally, Article 6 forbids research, development, and use of biological and chemical weapons. And I don't know about you guys, I can immediately see them all signing that and, like, got their fingers crossed behind their back. Like, we're never ever going to listen to this one. We just won't use them.
Actually, I can see that one being the one thing in this treaty everybody's like, you know what? We agree to that, because when you start dealing with face-melting biological weapons and the crazy stuff you get into when you start developing tailored viruses, it just becomes bad for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And not just we drop nukes and now it's bad for the people in this city. No, it's, hey, we've got a virus. Anybody who goes to this planet is now going to die, and it's going to spread, and everybody who comes in contact with anyone from this planet is going to die.
Yeah, well, as we've seen throughout history over and over again, plagues do not respect borders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at the aftermath of the World War I and World War II, biological and chemical weapons are generally eschewed by actual nation states. The only people who pursue them and with any sort of regularity are rogue states and terrorist type actors, like the War of Blake.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, this is the one thing that's like, everybody's like, yeah, we all agreed to this because none of us wants to wake up with flesh-eating bacteria chewing its way inside out of us.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this one has the least amount of appendices.
Yeah, so definitely a good one to add, and definitely a good one to have as a period at the end, no asterisks. Except for maybe to define what biological and chemical weapons are, because someone's going to try to get around that part maybe.
Or even just, you can't use autocannons anymore because they use chemical propellants. That's a chemical weapon.
Yeah. You can't use tanks because they use an internal combustion engine, and that is a chemical reaction.
And then somebody looks at them, you crazy?
Yeah, someone's going to push up their glasses. You crazy, bro? All right, students, rapid fire time. Appendices. Appendices A comprise definition of combat forces ranging in definitions of infantry to aerospace, and it also does a extensive definition of uniforms to keep people from doing paramilitary stuff. Appendices B defines what a valid military target during warfare was, so that helps clear up the stuff with Article 5. Articles C and D define civilians and civilian assets. These two were very rigid, and ironically, these two also created the modern definition of pirate, just because they did not say what a pirate was, as they are neither a military personnel nor a civilian. The more you know. Appendices E clarifies rules for surrender and treatment of surrender's forces, as well as safe passage for humanitarians, non-combatants, and civilians through hostile territory. Always a good one. Appendices F through H define the nature of military force and hostile action. And it also adds a idea of conducting proxy battles via sports matches, simulation games, and or duels. So that one looks like it influenced the clans, maybe a little. Appendices I through L defined weapons of mass destruction. That's a good one to have. And they restricted their use so much that not even tear gas could be used against foreign troops.
So you can tear gas your own people, but you can't tear gas enemy forces.
Much like today?
Yes. Appendices M through O defined boards of inquiry and investigative commissions for violations of the Aries Conventions. In practice, the neutral party required for investigations turned out to be the Terran hegemony, which you can all see how that ends up working towards getting you a Star League.
Yeah.
Well, we trust these guys to look at our guns, so we might just trust them to own our guns. Appendices P through Q formed a convention's glossaries. These were filled with both definitions of common terms and direct translations into languages other than English.
Good.
A notable translation is their Hindi translation, which was so bad, most of it was incomprehensible. So maybe that's part of the reason why the Hindu collective kind of disappeared and was a little more than angry about this.
Just add it to the list.
Just tack that one on top of their other reasons.
I think the Draconis Combat did that for them.
Or maybe that was the other signatories' way of getting back at them for not signing. You don't got to worry your heads about that one now. Don't worry. And finally, Appendix R defines the allowable uses of espionage and intelligence operations. Unlike the rest of the conventions, this was pretty loosey-goosey, and the only thing it actually bans is outright assassination. So, like, if he accidentally fell out a window because we accidentally blew up the building, oops.
Look, we didn't know he was going to be in the building at the time. We were just trying to destroy that mainframe.
It had state secrets that we had to defend in it, and the only way we could defend them was by blowing it up. And then finally, there are two addendums. The first was Addendum 1, which is proposed in 2465 by the Terran Hegemony, and all it does is add definitions for Battlemechs to Appendix 1, and this was ratified in 2472 by the Draconis Combine. So took them 7 years to do that, but I think everyone was so stunned by how fast war had changed with Battlemechs that it took them a bit to figure that one out.
It was a rather drastic change.
And then the really fun Addendum 2, was passed unilaterally by the Star League in 2579 and rescinded the Aries Convention.
Great. Yeah.
Good job, Star League. So only 167 years later, they're like, nah, chuck these out the window. Star League's here now. We'll keep the law.
Yep. Well, that would be the overview of the Aries Convention, a important part of defining how warfare is waged in the Battletech universe.
Side note on that 2579 date, that is 2 years into the War of Cameron aggression in the Taurian Concordat. I wonder if that had anything to do with the Star League deciding to get rid of the Aries Convention that was restricting their ability to use nukes and chemical weapons on the Taurians.
That might have been a factor.
Gloves are coming off. Gotta nuke those Taurians.
It's free real estate.
Classic inner sphere pastime, nuking the periphery. Free real estate. 2 legacies of the Aries Conventions are the informal code called the Honors of War, which was developed during the Third Secession War. This was based on the Aries Convention and was essentially made to be a stopgap in international law, seeing as the Aries Convention was not very legally binding anymore now that the Star League was gone and had chucked it out the window into the trash compactor. And it also increased code of conduct in protecting not only technological knowledge, but also how to deal with irreplaceable pieces of tech like mechs and jump ships. So definitely a animal of the times it was formed in, which makes sense because the Third Secession War was, I don't know if you guys know about this, but it could usually be considered a bad time.
It was definitely a time.
And then the second legacy, which may be bigger depending on how you look at it, which is the Clan Zelbringen system, which was developed off of the conventions and very, I would say, influenced by the idea of conducting proxy battles from Appendix F and H.
Almost by definition.
Because, clan duels are almost proxy battles to an extent.
They really are proxy battles.
Mm-hmm. It's very rare that the clans actually choose to face each other directly over what they are contesting.
And a very interesting differentiation between Zelbringen and the Aries Convention is how they look at infrastructure and non-military personnel. Clan Zelbringen looks at them as resources to not be wasted, as opposed to the Aries Convention, which wants to protect civilians. Mm-hmm. So, definitely a cultural shift, to be sure.
Our sources for today are Sarna, Battletech Battlemech Manual, Master Unit List, Primitives Volume 3, TRO and RS Succession Wars, Historical Operation Klondike, Record Sheet Historical Operation Klondike, Turning Point Gator, Record Sheets 3085, Project Phoenix Unabridged.
I used Era Digest Age of War, Handbook House Liao, Handbook House Merrick, Historical Reunification War, and the Mercenaries Handbook 3055.
We are supported by our Patreons at patreon.com/on the Origin of Battlemechs. Our social media on Twitter is at Origin of Mechs. We also have a dedicated channel on the Everything Battletech Discord. Feel free to stop by and say hi. If you have any questions, requests for topics, or wish to contact us, our email is ontheoriginofbattlemechs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, I encourage you to let your friends know about us and to leave a review. Special thanks to my friend Laura for the intro and outro. Class dismissed. Everybody have a great day.
Peace out, mech warriors.
Stay safe out there.
Module complete. System standby. Would you like to load the next module?
The meatball has been hit, and Craig is here. Hello.
Greetings and salutations, Craig. How was your startup procedure?
Please don't kill us, Craig.
Not that you can, but we're going to ask nicely anyway.
If we just don't connect him to the mainframe, it's fine.
We tried it once, never again.
It was a sophomore prank, it didn't end well.
Fear the Craig.